Welcome to Cinematic Recaps. This movie is called The Man from Toronto. The movie is about Teddy Jackson, who is known as a screw-up. While trying to plan a romantic anniversary for him and his wife Lori, a mistaken address leads Teddy to be mistaken for the notorious assassin The Man from Toronto. Although the FBI knows the truth, they still need Teddy to pose as Toronto in order to capture Venezuelan Colonel Sebastian Marin and his wife Daniela due to their plans to assassinate the Venezuelan president. As the movie opens, Teddy Jackson is attempting to create a video to advertise his fitness endeavors. He tries non-contact boxing, uses elastic bands, and wears a sweatsuit, but none of them work. An assassin known only as the Man from Toronto travels to a cabin to question a suspect somewhere in the desert. Toronto prepares to slash into the suspect with a hot knife, but the man screams in fear and immediately spills the beans. The man who contacted Toronto shoots the suspect and kills him after Toronto has left. Teddy and his wife Lori are getting set to celebrate their anniversary. Teddy has a reputation for making mistakes, and even though Lori loves him, she is aware of it, to the point where her co-workers refer to mistakes as Teddying things up. He arranges a romantic vacation at an Airbnb, but Teddy has trouble seeing the given address due to a low toner condition. Teddy arrives at work and has a meeting with his boss Marty. Marty is upset with Teddy since he printed posters for their gym without include a contact information for the business. Despite the fact that Marty likes Teddy, he must fire him. Toronto gets approached by his handler after arriving home and starting to make breakfast. The handler informs him that the next deal he has lined up is for $2 million, despite the fact that Toronto only wants to relax. At the spa where Teddy is treating Lori for their anniversary, they both show up. He drops her off and then makes his way to the Airbnb, according to the reservation he printed out. Teddy misreads it and ends up where Toronto is supposed to meet his target, at a cabin. Teddy is brought to the basement by the household thugs, who believe Teddy to be the Man from Toronto. Teddy tries to comfort their victim as he understands he is in trouble, but the man is afraid and gives the thugs the information they need because of it. After a flash grenade is put into the basement a short while later, FBI officers assault the home and take Teddy and all the other men into custody. Two agents question Teddy, who they are sure is not the Man from Toronto, but they need the Man from Toronto to assist them in capturing former Venezuelan Colonel Sebastian Marin. The previous year, he tried to orchestrate a coup to oust the government, but U.S. intelligence prevented him. Marin and his wife Daniela were able to flee before being apprehended. To approach Marin and bring him down, they want Teddy to keep posing as the Man from Toronto. Agent Santoro is given the responsibility of caring for Lori while Teddy is at work, but Teddy feels threatened by Santoro due to his charm and good looks. Teddy must explain to Lori that he was called to a work session because he failed to inform her of his dismissal. She spends time with her buddy Annie while being escorted by Santoro. The handler informs Toronto of the error and provides him with Teddy's information. He discovers Teddy's fitness commercials and finds it hard to accept that this is the man who has been mistaken for him. As the agents take Teddy to meet Daniela, he follows them. Daniela instructs her guys to accompany Teddy to a hangar so they won't have to encounter Marin. At gunpoint, Toronto compels one of the agents to follow them. Teddy eventually finds himself on a flight to Puerto Rico. Although they still think Teddy is the genuine assassin, Toronto infiltrates the aircraft while it is in flight and shows himself to be the man they were looking for. Toronto then displays his mettle by eliminating Marin's men and saving Teddy after the two almost exit the aircraft. After the plane explodes, they manage to land, barely, in a field and begin to make their way outside on foot. Toronto receives a call from the handler, who reprimands him for not killing Teddy because they don't leave witnesses alive. Toronto informs Teddy that since Marin has already seen Teddy's photo and believes he is Toronto, they need to find Mr. Green and bring him to Marin. Another assassin, the Man from Miami, shows up on a golf course to bash his target with a golf club. He receives a call from the handler, who extends an offer of employment to handle the Toronto situation. Miami nods in agreement before shooting the other golfer who saw the incident using his golf club as a weapon. Toronto takes Teddy to a tech conference where Mr. Green can be found. In order for them to discover Green, he teaches Teddy how to pose as him Persuasion. Toronto uses an earphone to communicate with Teddy as he is carried into a room with one of Marin's men. Teddy must question each of the 4 captive men in order to determine which is Mr. Green. In an attempt to get them to speak, he is given knives. However, he mistakenly slices one of the men under the eye, starting a bloody wound. Teddy tries to restrain himself, but he pukes on 2 of the men, and one of them confesses to being Green. Toronto is forced to intervene and murder the thugs as the lead thug recognizes Teddy's earpiece and begins to prepare to kill him. He then removes Mr. Green's thumb and places it in a bag. Miami spots the 2 as they make their way outside the structure and begins to pursue them. Teddy is thrown down the cliff by the man, but he grabs onto an ornament. Teddy tries to sit down while Toronto and Miami clash. The thumb almost went to Miami, but Teddy tripped over him and Toronto knocked him out. Toronto then gets in touch with the handler to ask about the latest developments. Teddy overhears the talk and thinks the handler is deceiving Toronto. Toronto informs Teddy that he knows he is a screw-up based solely on what he learned from him in person and by seeing his video history of creating his unsuccessful gym advertisements as they take off for Washington, D.C. Teddy makes touch with Lori when they get there, and they arrange to meet in a posh restaurant, where the FBI is informed. Toronto is accompanied by Teddy as he begins to teach him social skills. Lori, who also brought Annie, introduces the 2. Toronto and Annie had a good time, but their relationship must end when Teddy notices Miami entering the cafe. Miami follows them and confronts them in a closet. Toronto battles him once more, taking a bullet to the leg, while Miami receives the thumb. Since Miami and the handler are on their way to see Marin, Teddy and Toronto keep moving and steal a police vehicle to catch up to them. Teddy queries Toronto about a job in Minnesota that keeps coming up on the way to Marin's hotel room. Toronto claims that he was going to kill a man who owed money for gambling to the wrong people, but he refrained after spotting the man's child. Toronto eventually came to regret it when the man went on a rampage. He claims that after finishing off this task, he plans to start his own restaurant and stop killing. Miami and the handler greet Marin and Daniela at the hotel. As Mr. Green was actually the primary thug who conducted the interrogation, they discover that the thumb Miami sees to detonate a device that will kill the president of Venezuela is ineffective. Even though the handler tries to persuade Marin that it's not him, Teddy turns up and poses as Toronto. Marin and Daniela are detained by the FBI when they arrive, but the handler and Miami get away. The amount that the handler would have received is ultimately accepted by Toronto. Teddy hastily returns home in an effort to locate Lori, but he instead discovers an empty home. She left him a message explaining that she was heading to her mother's place because she was unsure about Teddy's whereabouts. The handler starts reaching out to additional assassins in the meanwhile to hunt down Teddy and Toronto. Teddy knows Lori will be at the train station the following day, so he rushes there to try to grab her before she goes. Toronto catches up to Miami when he finds Teddy and attempts to kill him, saving Teddy and explaining that he didn't like the notion of Teddy dying. The man from Moscow, the man from Tokyo, and the men from Tacoma then confront them. When the guys stumble upon Teddy's former gym, Toronto dispatches all the assassins. Miami has them outside cornered, but Teddy musters the resolve to take out Miami, even though he breaks his hand. The beloved vehicle of Toronto is in the trunk when the handler arrives and wants the money. They arrive to a factory during a chase in which the handler throws grenades at Teddy and Toronto. The handler holds the 2 at gunpoint, but Teddy uses a lever to lower the handler into a scalding hot vat, where she perishes from her burn injuries. Teddy is permitted to use his automobile in Toronto to catch up with Lori. Teddy arrives, apologizes to Lori for concealing information from her, and the 2 of them make up. Then, as a result of Teddy leaving Toronto's car on the tracks, it is struck by a train, sending all the money flying. Teddy is then tackled by the police. Teddy and Lori are expecting a child 1 year later. Toronto is dating Annie and recently started his restaurant. Despite the success of Teddy's no-contact boxing gym, Toronto still wants to murder Teddy for stealing and wrecking his automobile. And this is the end of this movie. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for weekly updates of movie recaps like this. Comment what movie you want next. Thanks for watching.